You're listening to a 4x4 Radio Network podcast.
Just in case you're wondering where you've checked in, folks, welcome to On the Trail with Kevin and Scott. And we are at show
134.
134. Hey, I'm Kevin, the engineer, the general Jeep tech guy. You know, use the tools, read the manuals, follow the instructions.
And I'm Scott. I'm the slapstick parts guy, currently wearing an oversized hoodie playing marsupial. And it's a nice, brisk, cold winter day here in Florida. It's a brisk, currently at the undisclosed locations, 57 degrees. And we are destined to have 11 inches of sunshine today. So with that, remember, while we will share what worked for us and as well as what didn't, it's really up to you to choose what you want to do to your Jeep. So do your research, read the introduction and the instructions, and make sure that you follow them. Right, Kevin?
Oh, my God. He got it basically correct. I'm impressed. It's only taken 5 years.
Yeah, well, after our last episode's trail wreck, I decided...
Hey, folks, we've been 5 years. He's chewing me up. Occasionally, I can take a cheap shot across it.
Okay, Papa Squirrel.
Yes, and he's been planning how to work that one in the show. Figured to give him an easy shot up early.
I can't really say if he's Papa Squirrel, I'm chock full of nuts. But moving on, welcome to another thrilling episode, an action-packed episode of On the Trail with Kevin and Scott.
Okay.
I have moments of lucidity.
You do.
Lucidness, I think.
Lucidity is a correct term. Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah.
So, boy.
I didn't learn it good. More gooder. Oh, man. So how good afternoon, evening, and or morning, everyone there out in podcast land. We hope you have a wonderful day. Stayed safe from all the weather and inclement, both if you were up in the north. And had
what is it, all the cold weather and inclement politics?
Yeah. Not that kind of show. And thank you for joining us on Spotify. For those of you who are not following the Joe Rogan, what's the whole joke? 0 to 20. Who's Neil Young from the 21 to 45 crowd? Oh my goodness, who's Joe Rogan or something like that? And then from the 59 to older is what's Spotify?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So moving on.
Oh, brother. Oh my.
Do you even know what's going on with that?
No.
I'll tell you later. It's kind of a funny joke. You tell inclement politics. Basically,
yes.
Neil Young said he doesn't want to be on Spotify anymore because of Joe Rogan's on
Oh,
there.
No, yes. Okay, I got it. I got it. And so they ended up canceling him.
No one wants to he canceled himself. So
literally.
The whole point is that you guys love us. So that's the important part. We're on all the players, except I'm still working on Stitcher Radio.
I was going to say we can...
Stitcher makes it very hard to get on their podcast player. So for those of you who keep messaging and emailing me, I am working on it. It just takes a little bit of time, and I do apologize. I am working diligently in between giving Gunner snacks and treats and walkies to get this done. So I haven't forgot about you.
Yeah. Okie dokie.
A lot going on here. I think I threw Kevin a curveball because the entire time we're both sitting here yawning before the pre-recording, and all of a sudden now I'm awake.
It's a sudden burst of energy.
I tell you what, but the battery is still low. It's kind of like that last great act of defiance.
Oh, well, we fed you well for lunch, so
Yeah.
That's
Great.
Probably most of it is the body's going, food.
Hey, speaking of food,
yes.
So we're starting the new Jeep topic. Oh my goodness! For my next break, I'll talk. My seats are ordered. After doing some diligent research and constantly sitting in Kevin's Jeep, I decided to splurge upon myself and order myself some Mastercraft Baja RS suspension seats.
Mm-hmm.
And update soon to follow on that, because honestly, I like those seats. And I know some people would say, well, seats are like, Coke or Pepsi questions. Everyone you ask can have a different answer.
That's right.
Like everyone knows the LJ is far superior to everything else. But,
sure.
As everything goes
in
on.
your mind.
Yeah, exactly. So as everything goes on, I went with those seats because what was the rating for the crash rating?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but they actually have a crash rating, which most aftermarket seats do not.
Right.
And they are admissible as Baja Racing seats,
Yeah.
So you do pay for them, but they, number one for me, they're just very comfortable and met my wife's doctor's requirements back after her car accident many moons ago. And she could ride in that and still ride in the Jeep and not come home in agony and needing to go see a chiropractor or, heaven forbid, the orthopedic surgeon.
Yeah.
So, it worked for us. I don't push it on anybody else because they are a trifle expensive. But, amongst the thing compared to the factory seats, almost anything, I'm pretty sure a milk crate with at least a marshmallow on it would be softer than the Jeep seats original.
So the marshmallow in mine slowly rotted away over about 34,000 miles ago. And now I'm talking about, well fed, that also kind of broke the seat too. Moving on that subject, to be honest with you. But I'm excited to get him because I got my bed rug kit in for the LJ. So the plan is to do all the install at once. I got about 7 more weeks till I get my seats. And they're like, so sorry, it's going to be an 8-week back order. I'm like, I don't care. As long as I get there, I'll probably get those before I get the pre-runner light kit I ordered for the Gladiator of 2 months ago. Moving on. But I'm excited to get them. I mean, it was a good outlaying of cash. But, between the hard top of being comfort, and I'll tell you what, that metal cloak lift, oh my God, it is beautifully still in the storage unit. Haven't got to it yet. Probably get the seats in before I get that stupid lift on, because I am literally 30 days from that being a year in the storage unit. Now I just want to wait that last 30 days just because. But again, it looks beautiful in the box,
Well, if Will and Madsen are listening, we will actually, maybe we'll call it putting in an antique metal cloak kit because it's a short arm original.
It's either that or I can send it to the Smithsonian. But no.
Hey, look, mine's a lot older than that, and it still works wonderful.
Oh man, I might be angering the Jeep gods because it's stuffed in a Gladiator lift box.
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, he sold the Gladiator before I put the lift in. Oh gosh. Moving on from that subject. Holy cow.
What?
The box is from Warren's Gladiator lift.
Oh,
that we did a year ago.
we are supposed to be doing a podcast here.
Yeah, but we're keeping it Jeep related.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be kind of fun again. A lot of stuff upgrade. So between the lift, the seats, and the hard top, I'm going to be in the rolling sofa.
Yeah, you are.
It's going to be nice.
So, are you going to bring the rolling sofa to the next Jeep event?
Yes, I am actually. And speaking of next Jeep event, I'm going to let you go ahead with some good old American talking because I can't now.
Folks, what we're talking about is the spring event is coming up here the end of April, beginning of May, and that would be Jeep Beach at Daytona Beach.
Yep.
Scott and I will both be there. As well as a bunch of our other shops that we've been working with, the Jeep Lab, Rose Scorpion Fab Works,
Gulf Coast Drive Shaft.
Gulf Coast Drive Shafts will all be there. Linex of South Linex of Tampa Bay, or Linex of South Tampa Bay, whatever it is.
Whatever way it is, yeah.
And they'll all be there. In fact, we probably are going to get together on Saturday on the beach and we'll do a run of tents down there. So if you're out that way, take a look. Scott will try to remember the banner this year. Hint, hint, nudge, 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 reminder with a brick.
Yeah. No, nothing subtle about that. You step outside from the camper and there's a giant neon sign, remember the banner. It's like, oh, wow. What am I supposed to do again?
Well, if you want, I'll come over and pick it up and put it in the back of the Jeep.
You know what? Let's do that. I like that idea.
Yes, okay, you would.
If it wasn't for me, the note wearing pants. Okay, I just want to make sure I had pants on. That would have been really awkward stepping in the restaurant. Hey, it says no shirt, no shirt, no shoes, no services. Nothing about no pants. But no, I'll just bring the banner over. That way we have at least 3 months for me to get the banner over here.
Yes. So anyway, this year Jeep Beach is looking to rev up a little bit since last year was kind of quiet. Yeah. It was good, but it was kind of quiet. Yeah. And so we will be both on the beach as well as out on the racetrack area. They're in the Daytona Speedway where the center field has the obstacle course and the rather ginormous vendors area. So we will be there. So look forward to any of you seeing you out there when you get there. If you're coming down, and if you're not, you should be. You're probably tired of the snow anyway from all these Arctic clippers and snowstorms and blizzards and that stuff. So we'll see how that goes.
One other thing we are working on, I'll go ahead and slight tease it. We're working on a couple little things. So if you do so that way you'll have an incentive to find us. Hint, hint. So that way, if you do see us, Kevin and I will be both wearing our trail T-shirts, and I'll probably be having a little red wagon. keep an eye out for us because, again, if the planets align and I don't forget to do something, we will.
We might have some interesting swag, one of a kind, 1 year only.
Yes.
So, anyway, with that teaser out of the way.
Speaking of finding just look for the reflection off my bald head. That'll also be a sign.
Oh, yeah, the glistening sweat because by then it'll be back up to normal Florida, sweltering.
Exactly.
Watching the Jeep's tires slowly melt into pavement or dirt or sand.
Meanwhile, on the surface of the sun. So as you were saying, moving on to the next transition of the subjects.
Yes.
Did we have anything else? Because I forgot. I wish they would make this item that you could hold in your hand that would disperse some kind of either ink or graphite on, and something you can write on. That way we could take notes.
Maybe something biodegradable made from plant materials that will be returned to plant materials. Yes. Yeah, I'll grab a pen and paper and write that down for you.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, get it so I can remember to write it down.
Yes.
No, we're actually looking forward to that event. Jeeping with Judd's also coming up.
Yep. At this point, I don't think we're going to make it. Due to life, we weren't able to get registered soon enough, and they are sold out.
Yeah.
And yes, I know you can theoretically buy tickets from people who already bought them, but the date for that was for moving the
they make it a little
the
difficult.
registration over to a different person, I think was just this week. So I think it's done now. And that's okay. I mean, it's a great event. I think everybody that I know is going to enjoy it. And we're sorry we missed it this year, but, life interceded.
Yeah.
We are recovering from that situation and hope things to be better. And like I say, so we will be making Jeep Beach, and we're going to try to get some more events going this year for us.
Yeah.
We've been having a planning session most of this morning, going back and forth on where we're going, where we're staying, how we're doing it, and more to come on that as we finally lock in those things. And
Yes.
I'm the only retired one. Scott has to put in for leave, and Susan has to put in for leave, and
Yeah.
and I'm going. Well, I can go. I can go that one too. I can go this one. I can go that one. I can go.
Yeah. Let me check my schedule. He looks down at his phone and it just says "Be awesome." Yeah, I think I'm good that week. Yeah.
Well, we are still the new residence and studio location is still not yet occupiable, and that has been
look,
its own
a
drama.
fluffy kitten.
Yes, we should have been in last Halloween.
Again, oh look, fluffy puppy.
But once we get there, then the new, let's see, Scott calls it the new laboratory, but it's the new barn and workshop area will be starting, so it'll be a little while.
His house is becoming my lift, or other way around.
Yes,
Sorry.
but it's frustrating. I'm waiting on the power company. There's been whole drama there.
Yeah.
And I have a finished house. Yes, there's some touch-up paint and some odds and ends, but it's ready. It's beautiful. It's sitting there stone cold, no power, no lights, no...
You ever watch a candlelight, or you ever watch a DVD by a lighter? It's kind of hard to spin that disc on your finger when you hold the lighter up to it.
Exactly. So we shall see. I'm hoping one of these times to go, we're in a new location.
Yes.
But we'll see when that happens. Of course, then we have to actually get internet out there. Otherwise, I'll be sending Scott off with a thumb drive going, here, can you upload this when you get home?
Well, technically, we could record from there because all the equipment is battery operated.
Well,
but,
that's true. That's very, very
a little
true.
Echoey as him and I sit on a paint bucket.
Or flat on the floor. So anyhow, can I go to my topic now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's good. Folks, if you were following any of the Facebook posts, you know that just recently I spent another full day over at Faster Proms in Clearwater, Florida with Jeremy, the owner, and he doesn't really have a title, but I'm going to title him the master programmer for the LS systems.
Okay.
He'd probably sneer at me and throw something. But this man worked his magic again on Bob's on the YJ, 95 YJ. If you recall, we talked about it before, that I assisted with the transplant of an 03 LS LM7, which I believe is the
5.3?
yeah, huh?
Was it a 5.3 motor? Or? Sorry, I'm throwing you off my.
Yeah, you are. I'm throwing myself up. But anyway, yeah, the 5.3 motor and 4-speed transmission from Novak. And there was a lot of questions thrown back at me going, well, why are you programming it? Are you trying for more power? Are you trying for this? Why do you have to program them, reprogram them? Didn't Novak reprogram it? Other questions like that. So let's get down and dirty to it. Number one, didn't Novak already reflash the ECU? Yes and no. They cleared the VATS, vehicle anti-theft system, so that it could be started. They did, at Bob's request, delete the sensor 2s, Bank 1 sensor 2, Bank 2 sensor 2, which are the post-catalytic converter ones that are used to monitor performance of the cats, which Bob's Jeep did not have to have at the factory, being a 95. So he had no cats in the exhaust system. The pre-cats stay in because those are used to switch from the open loop mode where the engine is running off a fuel map with no adjustments to the closed loop mode where the ECU can look at the oxygen sensors and do fuel trims, positive and negative, which usually increases your efficiency, your horsepower, and fuel mileage,
right.
As long as you keep your foot out of it. But none of those changes, other than those changes, they don't make any other changes to the ECM because, quite frankly, they do set your tire size and gear ratio if you give it to them.
Right.
But beyond that, they don't know enough, Novak, when you're buying the engine, because you haven't built the Jeep yet to fill it out. So, yes, doing a post-install tune with a competent tuner on a rolling road, well, we'll get to it. Was it of value? I think it was of great value. First off, we found out that the ECU, the VIN number was pulled up and found to be out of a 03 Avalanche.
Okay.
And it was interesting to note that even Jeremy was kind of shocked when he said, there's no fuel enrichment anywhere in this system until above 2,000 RPM. And one of the reasons Bob agreed to go get the tune, even though he was like, I don't want to really spend another $700, but he realized, he says, it just doesn't quite feel like a V8. I had a
right.
4, and you're saying you don't feel a V8. He said, well, I do, but I don't. He said, there just wasn't that low end snap feel. Not that he's trying to peel out or anything like that. It just
right.
wasn't.
His SOP wasn't jiving with what he wanted.
Yeah, seat of the pants dyno. So Jeremy looked at it. He says, there's no fuel enrichment. Which, folks, for those that don't know the technical side, you have your fuel map. Fuel enrichment is essentially, let's put it this way, kind of an accelerator pump, how it pumps a little extra fuel in when you put your foot down. It wouldn't let any of that happen. There was no value for fuel enrichment until above 2,000. So Jeremy was able to go in and look at that. The other thing he does is he cleans out all unnecessary programming. If you have a tow mode, but you don't have a tow mode in the Jeep, why even have it in the computer? Why waste computer processing time doing that? The processing time I want it doing is checking the O2 sensors, checking the throttle position, checking the temperatures, making the right fuel mixture, and repeat,
Right.
He also went through, and so he cleaned all of the extraneous programming out to clean up the computer. He also, like I said, he relayed the tables out based upon the fact that the Avalanche was like a 7,000 pound, 6,000 pound vehicle.
Right.
And the shift points, he could change all the shift points. He says, well, what's this Jeep weigh? And we said about 3,200 pounds. He says, yeah, that's going to change your shift points. Mm-hmm. He said, you don't need to hold it in gear so long. Okay. I can lock up the torque converter earlier because you're not pulling that kind of load, and it'll all unlock and downshift to put your foot in it. So, that's not a problem there. But he said, your seat of the pants should feel really different. And I'm just getting 1/10 of the kind of corrections. He changed fan temperatures to be more compliant with the Jeep, particularly when you're off-roading in that low crawl mode. The fan comes on earlier and stays on a little longer so that you don't risk overheating.
Right.
He can even look at the charge percentages on the alternator output on these later model things. So he can look at it and say, well, you got a winch, so let's keep maybe be a little more aggressive on the charge system. The amount of tweaking that he can do is phenomenal. And again, that's what you're really paying for.
Yeah.
Because I'll be honest, backing it onto a dyno, plugging in the computers, that's not real expensive.
No, you're paying for their knowledge, their expertise, and their ability to
you're
do these things.
Paying for the knowledge of what it can do, what it's capable of, and what changes are safe and not safe. Because Bob's like, well, I don't want this thing to be hard to drive. I don't want it lumpy. I just want a smooth power, application.
Right.
And long and short of it is about 4 hours of work, and Jeremy did a fantastic job. And we picked up on the dyno about 22 horsepower and maybe 26 foot-pounds of torque, which is good. I'll take every ounce. Bob's like, I'll take every ounce we can get without it becoming lumpy and sounding like it idling with a bad cam. It really woke the engine up in terms of that lower power band. And to me, what was wild was he did all of the pulls in second gear. He would not let the thing go any higher than second gear. And Bob finally looked at me and says, so why not do third gear or fourth gear? He said, well, number one, there's no sense putting the strain on the transmission and the drivetrain of those 35-inch tall tires that weigh over 120 pounds apiece. He said, we can do that, but also at full throttle where I'm revving it up to like 6,100, 6,200, we don't need to be doing 140 miles an hour in a Jeep YJ. He said, second gear is plenty to get the power output. And so, this man knows his stuff extremely well. It does take you a little while to get on his calendar because he is very busy, not just in the Jeep world. As I've said before on the last show, he's very popular with anybody running the LS family of motors, LTs and LSs. And they had what was the one I'm trying to remember? It doesn't matter, but one of the name brand Corvettes that some guy had brought in with the LT in it that had the 468 V8 into it. You know what I'm talking about, the cylinder cutoff one?
Yeah, MDS system.
And they were in there completely down in the block, blocking off the channels, changing out the lifters, and getting it back to get rid of the 468 and making it just a straight 8. And so they're able to do that level of detail. It's a small shop though. It's only 3 or 4 guys in there total.
Right.
But they're especially. But I tell you what, if you're in the market for an LS swap, make sure you include something in your budget for planning for a post-install LS tune. And the best ones that I have seen so far is those that can do it on a dyno. Because the dyno gives you the true feedback. The other thing, and I wrote a little feedback in the note, there was some comments about the powers looked low. Let's just put it kindly. And folks, the dyno gives you rear wheel horsepower, not crank horsepower. And you lose 15% on average between crank and tires in an automobile.
Right.
When you start talking about the weight of the tires and the heavy drivetrains and four-wheel drive, even though you're not pushing it, the gear is all there.
Right.
You're going to lose closer to 20%, maybe even a little above, of your crankshaft power to your wheel. So, and let's be honest, while crankshaft is good, and that's the way they're going to market it because it's the bigger number, the one that you feel is rear wheel horsepower and rear wheel torque. And the drive home was phenomenal. We drove in, and I mean, it was a cold day when we took it in. Everybody thought we were nuts because we drove over in a doorless YJ with a rag top and bundled up well. Did the tuning, came home. Going over, holding 70 miles an hour, we're turning about 21.5. Coming home, we were doing 19.5.
Nice.
And that's from the changes in the torque converter lockups. Not obviously gearing doesn't change, and the shift points, and the fact that the slightly higher line pressure obviously was holding the clutch plates a little tighter, and there was less slippage. So that was fantastic, and Bob could not help himself. He was like a teenager again. And we were on a certain street I won't name just in case somebody's looking for a green YJ. And it had some construction coming up, and we were at a light, and about half a block forward, there was a merge. And we were in the straight lane, and there was I'm going to say, mid-2000s Ford Mustang. and the light turned and the Mustang was going to launch, he was going to cut Bob off. Bob wasn't having any of that.
No, young Bucky.
And I just looked over and I said, "Do you realize you just smoked a Mustang?" And he just grinned. He says, "Yeah, I know. I was bad, wasn't I?" I said, "Yeah, you were." He says, "Good." He said, "But it felt so good."
The owners of ODD Media do not condone racing.
No, we don't. We absolutely don't. And I will admit, I was in the passenger seat holding on rather firmly because I had no doors, watching the signposts go by like a picket fence.
Well, picket fences for the 1960s? Never mind.
Yes, there's a song about that.
Yes.
But so that's, kind of my wrap-up take on the whole programming art. The software is easy to get. That's HP Tuners. But that knowledge of what works, what doesn't, what's the right values for all these different figures.
That's where the magic is.
That's the noggin of a guy that's been doing it for 20 plus years and really has it down. And he admits, he says he's had a few motors come to pieces, either from people telling him to go further and then not driving it like they said they would be, or in fact his own when he was trying to push the limits and seeing what we could do.
That's when you come home, bring your engine in a bag. No, that's one of the you actually did bring up this conversation and about someone asked on the interwebs, hey, what does a normal engine cost? They wanted to do a LS swap in their JK, and everyone kind of like looks at, so you got some people that, you can do it for $5,000. Oh, you can do it for $10,000. Taking things into consideration, what you need to add to that is a tuner, because again, $700 or whatever it costs in your area or whatever it costs when you listen to the show, it can be invaluable. It'll help keep the cost down because, again, having those shift points changed, having the final drive numbers will save a little money in gas. I mean, we're not talking gallons of gas.
No.
But it also is less wear and tear on the, like you said, about line pressure and holding those clutch bands tighter. That's what you're paying for. So take those things into consideration when you're doing an engine swap.
Yeah, very much so. And that I'm sure there are parts of the country where people can do LS swaps into older Jeeps for $10K or less, and that's what the guy was asking. But this wasn't an older Jeep. This was a JK, JKU. And as I told him, I said, I have done two recent ones, the 6.0 into the CJ and the 5.3 into the YJ. The CJ, no, we weren't anywhere close to $10,000 for the engine swap. But then again, in all fairness, that was a full frame-off resto build. But I know that we were north of probably $25,000 on the engine and drivetrain. But then again, we were wedging a 6.0, a 6L90E transmission, and the transfer case, we had to blow it apart and change it over because they wanted twin sticks in the, 205 cast iron beastie.
Okay.
So, there was a whole bunch there that was more than a motor swap. But we still did the wiring harness raw. We built our own fuse box. We built our own motor mounts, and we still went way north on that. The YJ started off at about 15 at the time it was built from Novak. Very complete kit. We did have to add still another couple of grand in terms of upgrades to the transfer case. Not that we had to. Technically, the NP231 would have lived, but with some minor upgrades, we're talking about $250 worth of parts, you can triple the torque carrying capability of the NP231.
Yeah.
But, they gave us a radiator, but not the hoses because they didn't know where they were going to put it. They give you the power steering pump on the LS, but they don't give you the hoses down to the steering box because you've got to fit that,
Right.
So those are the kinds of bits and pieces here and there. You get, if you choose to get a fly-by-wire throttle body, you got to go to the junkyard and get the throttle out of a junkyard. And that sort of things, gas pedals, but I mean, you got to get the gas pedal. Your heater, hose. It's just all of the little nitty stuff. And even then, as Bob found out, it's really cool. It fired right up and it drives, but it just fell a little short of what he was dreaming. Pulling out of Jeremy's, He said, the dream is back.
I'm so much happy now.
So just keep that in mind. I mean, LS swaps are neat. They are a lot of fun. They are not cheap.
No.
I don't care what you say. Now, if you're willing to do what I call a junkyard swap, and don't get me wrong, in total, I was counting up the other time. My wife asked me, she says, well, how many swaps have you done so far in your life? And I said, around 13 or 14 between what a 16-year-old me was doing a long time ago with a junkyard really close by and cheap parts. And there wasn't much of an opportunity. If an engine bay was empty, I'd stuff something else in it.
Anybody seen the tractor engine?
Yes. Shh. But the LS platform is very, very compatible. But to make it a complete install, you really need to then tune it. And in the old days, we knew that. It was okay. You've got to tune the carburetor and everything to idle and to pull. It's very different if you're doing a low-speed, high-torque vehicle from a freeway dedicated vehicle. A luxury vehicle is different again. A race car is different yet again.
Right.
So having somebody who understands how the system works, just like I used to be able to tune carburetors, I change jets in the Holley bodies or the Quadratec bodies so that you could meter the fuel flow to make it match the load that you were working. He knows how to go in and find what tables are important, what enrichment cycles are important, what shift points are critical, and make all those precision adjustments. And if you're going to go and get a guy to do that, be honest. That's number one. You go in asking for raw power, they'll give you raw power.
Yeah.
Drivability will suffer. And if you're using it as your daily driver, you may not have made a good choice. Be honest to yourself.
Yeah.
If you're going to go and wheel 20% of the time, but 80% of the time you need to be on road, ask for an on-road tune with a little bit of extra low-end kick,
right.
That sort of thing. So right now, Bob is itching to get out. He's looking at Jeep Beach. He says, obstacle course, here I come.
Hey, that's actually a smart way to do it because if something does happen,
you got lots of people that drag the carcass off the course.
One of the things that I actually saw, it was on the interweb, so it had to be true.
Oh, obviously.
It was one of the it was the Holley electrical race or something like that. But they're talking about using the Tesla S drives and like the certain battery pack. Mm-hmm. That's the new LS swaps now.
It is. They are modularized enough to hook in there. The thing is we have even less people familiar with high amperage DC current.
Yeah. Good old Sparky.
Yes. So, no, it's interesting to see. I've seen a article / video about a Tesla swapped, I believe it was a CJ7 up in the Northwest somewhere that was really impressive to watch. Because, of course, folks, the one thing I'll say about that is electric motors, 100% torque at 0 RPM.
Yeah.
So if you're up against an obstacle, with your foot on the brake, you can start to put out power and have 100% of your torque. And that's going to take a whole different driving style.
Yep.
I can see a lot of broken axles.
Napoleon blown apart.
So, and then, of course, I have my question for most of those people doing swaps. My Jeep swims pretty well up to the hood line. Are you that well sealed?
Well, electricity and water always mixes. So, I mean.
Well, yeah, that's how it boils. And
I'm joking.
So, but no. Hey, I think it's cool. I think we should push the boundaries on that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Let's just see where it goes from here.
That's one thing I don't know. Are they having the electric motor turn the transmission, or are they having the electric motor like actually back there where the axle assembly is?
Most of them are putting it up, turning either directly into the transfer case. Some are using some form of transmission. I have yet to see one, but it's feasible to mount one directly to the axle. Okay. So any or all are possible. It all depends on packaging and where you want to dunk it. So we'll see. I do want to jump over to one other thing before we leave this, not this topic, but the garage segment.
Okay.
And that is for those of us with the 04, 05, 06 TJs. We've been fighting a problem with an 04 out at one of my friend's shops for a while now. It's having some higher RPM breakups. And we just finished, and I just did a what do you want to call it? A
biopsy.
Well, no, I'm the video. Just did a joint.
Yeah, you were a guest on Mark's video.
Yeah, on the Jeep Labs video when we were changing a fuel pump out. Well, what I'm get to is not changing the fuel pump. A lot of people have done that.
Yeah.
But checking the fuel pressure on the 04, 05, and 06 TJs, the 4 liters, Chrysler decided to save a buck, and they deleted the Schrader valve up on the fuel rail. In fact, there is no open port on the last 3 years of TJ production anywhere in the fuel system for you to hook up a pressure gauge and read the fuel pressure coming out of that pump. Now, I know I'm sitting here complaining about a vehicle that's now 2 generations out of production. I get it, but there is parts on Amazon. You can now buy a small pressure gauge system that has 3 inline Schrader valve adapters. It's got a male on one and a female on the other, and then the Schrader valve in the middle.
Right.
It's about $40. Well worth it if you have one of those. If you ever think you have fuel pump problems, it's pretty easy to disconnect up at the fuel rail. The fuel line, just take it off the fuel rail. Do pull the fuse, crank until it no longer runs to get the fuel pressure out.
Just going to say that.
And then put it back in, but disconnect the line. It's still going to spit some, so make sure you've got a rag to catch it. And then put that little T fitting in there. Does take a little wrangling if you have air conditioning to get around all the air conditioning pipes, but that's fine. And then you can hook up your gauge and read it. And hopefully you still read in the 04s, it's 47. And I know before you tell me, in the video in the beginning, I mentioned 58. That's for the 5s and 6s. That's not for the 4s. This was a 4. I'm sorry, I screwed up. Had a senior moment. But later on, we realized it was 47.
We'll forgive you.
And the old pump was doing 20, well, in the video it's 27. When I tested it before, it's 20, so it's kind of moving around.
Right.
But when we actually got to add some throttle before it broke up, it dropped down all the way down to like 10, 12. And, it's amazing that the Jeep would still even run at those low of a pressures.
Yeah.
It wouldn't run well. And sadly, that was not the problem in the upper RPM ranges. But yeah, it's a tool that if you're going to run the older 4 liters, you eventually will need to know if your fuel pump's alive or dead. And the deadhead test, just to reiterate what we covered quickly in the video, the deadhead test is where you have a plug and you just disconnect the fuel line from the rail and read the pressure directly with the key turned on.
Okay.
But that's not real. That's, there's no flow through the system. It's what they call a deadhead test, and it tells you the absolute maximum the pump can produce. Now, had it read 47, I probably would have let it go, but it only read 25, 20, 25, depending on what time I turned the key. When we ran it in the flow test and actually let throttle, it wasn't even keeping up with the 27 PSI.
Right.
Under throttle, it was dropping off rapidly. As I said, it still hasn't solved the problem, but, it was a definite problem. In fact, we discovered the fuel sock, which is normally mounted to the bottom of the pump intake in the fuel tank and is the only fuel filter in the 04, 05, 06 TJs, had actually come off. It was so clogged. I don't know what blew it off, broke it off, bumped it off, but it was no longer even attached. So it had been pulling unfiltered fuel in through the injectors. So, and before we get all the help, yes, we changed the fuel pump. We put the sock back on. We flushed the fuel lines. We cleaned out the fuel rail, and we replaced the injectors.
Yeah.
From basically the tank to the tip of the injector, it's new or cleaned or been checked. So the problem is somewhere else.
Yeah.
So, anywho.
Well, that's kind of like piggybacking on that subject. One of our local shops kind of shared some stuff with us, like we talked about. This is actually kind of good because we talked about the paying for the expertise and the dyno. Mm-hmm. Obviously when Mark knew to help out with this car, Jeep. Wow, why did I say that? The point is, though, is that sometimes, it can be frustrating as an owner when things just don't seem to be working. And in the automotive business where I'm at, it is frustrating because, you have your vehicle that won't start. You're supposed to be the expert. It's been to 2 shops or whatever. Usually the car comes to us at the dealership, when no one else can figure anything out. And sometimes it just takes more time, or we don't know. Sometimes, we have to call engineering, and they'll fly a guy out from California to look at the car. Sometimes things it takes time or it takes more skill than what the shop may have.
Or maybe you have more wrong with your car than you think.
Yeah.
And in our case, our Jeeps. And that's happening right now as we discovered a bad fuel pump. We discovered, the spark plugs were burnt because the fuel pump had been running lean, which meant the engine was running hotter, which when Mark pulled spark plugs, they were all discolored. Were they actually misfiring? No, but they were on the verge of failure. So you get this problem, and then when you're trying to find the source of a problem, you can't go, okay, I don't have fuel pressure. So how can I move forward in my inspection?
Right. You're triaging the vehicle.
You're triaging. And so, you get to a point where maybe the shop's already invested money and hasn't solved the problem. But they've struck a lot of potential clauses off the list. We go back to the show we had a couple of sessions ago. The computer systems, everybody assumes, well, you just plug it into your computer and it tells you what's wrong. Well, yes and no. There's two factors you have to keep in mind. Number one, the computer only knows what it's told, okay? And not every system in a vehicle is monitored, all right? In the TJs, the fuel pump pressure is not monitored. There is no sensors in the system that monitor that. And two, what if the sensor itself is the problem and it's telling a lie? Right. Everybody assumes, if it's broken, it'll tell you. No, there's this nasty thing that most mechanics don't like to talk about, and that's a sensor that is functioning but giving bad data.
Kind of like the IAC motor that was stripped out for you.
The IAC that was working, reporting on a previous Jeep, saying, you need 47 clicks in. Okay, we're at 47 clicks in. We're 46 back. Problem is between the motor and the actual piston, it was disconnected. Yeah. So it was saying, I'm happy, I'm working. There's no code.
I'm giving you what you asked for.
But it was broken.
Yeah.
So when you get to that point, as much as the world hates it and you don't want to shoot the parts cannon, what you do is you build a step-by-step test plan and you start testing. And as the old adage says, we go back to the basics: fire, fuel, and air. Mm-hmm. And you usually start with air because that's the easiest one to see if it's breathing.
Yeah.
Then you go to fire. Okay, do I have spark? And there are very easy ways to, and then you get to fuel.
Hey, Jimmy, come hold this.
And then there is another one that isn't really part of that, and it's maybe what our problem is. There's actually a couple more that you get deeper because there's corollaries to those. If you have air, what else do you have to have? You have to have the yin and the yang. What's the yang of air?
Exhaust.
You have to be able to exhaust. You've got a plug cat. You have a plug muffler. There's no monitor on the muffler.
No sensor.
On a later TJs, there's there's O2 sensors on the pre-cats, but there's no O2 sensors on the main cat under the belly. So guess what? It's not monitored.
Well, I actually found that out when I had my when the drunk driver rear-ended me.
Yep.
I replaced 3 downstream O2 sensors because they all were bad.
Yep.
And I was at my wit's end. Wasn't until we dropped the exhaust to replace the downpipe because it got tweaked in the accident did we find one of the cats was hollowed out.
Right, it had broken up, which guess where all that ended up? In the main cat behind it.
Yeah. So the point being is that, the sensor was working, but it was saying, hey, we're having a bad, when it was a catalytic converter hollowed out the whole time.
Yeah.
So again, it's sometimes the computer doesn't, but
so the point for this, I guess, is where we're going with this is one of our guys had a guy came in, needed work. He'd bought a used Jeep. It had already had modifications, and then it had been well used hard and was making noises. And so they pulled the drive shaft because it was rattling, and they sent it off to get it repaired, and it couldn't be repaired. And it needed to be replaced. And then after that, it was still rattling and squeaking. And the guy just was abusive. You didn't fix this. You didn't do that. You didn't do this. It's whistling. It's your light bar that's blow. It's not my light bar. Yeah. Yes. And so I did not get involved. This is all secondhand, so please take it with a grain of salt.
Yep.
But the point is getting abusive on either side gets nothing done except builds an animosity.
Animosity, you're right.
Builds animosity and a negative relationship. Now, what do you think the guy's chances of getting our shop friend to fix the Jeep?
Yeah.
Nil. What do you think the chances are that the guy, will actually get his Jeep fixed?
Because that's another thing. Shops talk within each other.
Yes, they do.
Like when we have when one dealership is done dealing with a car, and well, I'm going here, and they call us and say, hey, you're going to have so and so with this car. Here's a litmus test of everything we did, and we think it needs a driver mod. The guy, banging it off the rev limit every 5 minutes. They talk.
So I get it. There will always be bad shops, and just like there will always be bad customers. But I guess what we're saying to you guys is, we live in a world where we play with our toys hard. We really do go past service extreme if we wheel our vehicles. They were never designed to go out rock bouncing, mud bogging. They were designed from the factory to go off-road, down the trails, to the lake, pulling a little aluminum boat, or maybe, bounce along to some ruins along an old fire road.
Yeah.
But really, we've kind of taken the off-road ability to an extreme.
Yeah.
And you can look at the ads and say, yeah, well, Chrysler kind of pumps it up that way.
Well, like our friend at the dealership says, trail rated doesn't mean indestructible.
Correct.
And the other side of that coin is that, again, being patient and taking your time, but also know that I'm sure that Jeep that they purchased was all shiny, but I bet it was a cheaper one on the lot.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Because it'd probably been beaten up and ridden hard, putting back.
The thing is if you can have a good cooperative relationship with your mechanic and listen and talk, be honest with the noises it makes and how you drive. Don't give them a story. But on the other hand, ask questions. Look to see the parts. If you don't agree that part was damaged that badly that needs to be replaced, ask to see the old one. Yes, it goes both ways, both the good and the bad. It's just bizarre that this shop, we happen to know, no, it's not the Mark one I was talking about, it's another one, really strives to do it right. I mean, really, really strives to do it right. And it would surprise me no end, and that's the only way I can put it. I wasn't there if he was trying to bilk somebody. He was somewhat shocked that this individual was just blowing his doors off with accusations. So
I have to change some names to protect the innocent, but we had a situation where
you were never innocent.
Well, that a customer brings in a very high performance car, okay, and has a history of leaving the dealership and banging it off the rev limiter. Drives the car hard, admitted to us in the parts department going to track days. Came in for an oil change and got his oil changed and needed a bunch of other work done. And when he saw the $2,800 price tag, balked and said, I'm not doing this. Well, he needed engine work done.
Right.
Car comes back with a wicked oil leak. Okay? This certain brand of car, the oil filter housing is underneath the car. It's in a cartridge. Now, quote, your guy didn't tighten the filter housing. Sir, it only leaked directly downward. Had this come off when you were driving, the entire underside of your car would be soaked in oil.
Yeah, it would have blown the cover completely off.
It is only on the engine splash shield. And without saying it, we left for the person to take a moment and admit that they were just trying to bilk some. And he goes, and so we tested. We put it full of oil, put the cap back on, marked it with a pen, idled the vehicle for 25 minutes, took it on a long test drive, came back, idled the vehicle for another hour with the shop foreman doing it. Car shows back up 2 days later, the engine knocking when the oil filter housing was loose again. Trying to tell us that we did this. So while there are terrible shops, some shops do a lot of stuff to protect themselves. So keep that in mind that there is a lot of times when a shop seems maybe a little bit pushback, it's because something like that similar happened to them. So it's usually a give and take relationship, like Kevin said. You got to be willing to understand, empathize, and communicate.
Yeah. So you're the customer. I get that, but you don't get anything for free either.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. On the other hand, I will throw one last little tech tip in here for you all. And this is from Mark at the Jeep Lab. And this isn't anything accusational on anybody. This is just when you're working on the a lot of people. Let me back up. A lot of people with the are having the oil filter housing problems in the
3.6 J.
the 3.6 in the JKs. And we talked about it last show that Mark did a test run with the new Dorman aluminum. Yeah. But he actually had one that he just finished up. It was not with a Dorman. It was back with a factory Mopar install. When you remove to change out that oil filter housing and cooler assembly, you have to remove the intake manifold. You have to take off the fuel rails and the fuel injectors. And then all that goes back on. And Mark's done several dozen of these and is very good at it. But he got caught with one of the classics. He'd finished one up, and it was leaking a little bit of oil. And we actually were there working on the red Jeep, doing some other stuff on that fuel tank and whatnot, and we kept smelling gasoline. Did we spill gas? And we kept thinking, well, we had the tank out of the red one.
Yeah.
And we kept checking the red Jeep, kept checking the red Jeep. It wasn't the red Jeep.
Really?
It was the 3.6. And this is the watch point, is somewhere along the line, either Mark, he admits it could have been him. It's not a big deal. It hadn't even left his shop, so it never even got to the customer. But it had a pool of fuel in the valley between the two cylinder heads.
Wow.
Because one of the injector's upper O-rings, and these are the ones that are dangerous, guys, because they're what holding the pressure against the fuel rail, and that's also a 60 PSI system in that. As it had been installed, had shaved off part of the ring on one side. So imagine a donut that you took a knife and did a slice off the round side of the donut.
Yep.
It didn't hold the fuel pressure real well, but it didn't throw a code.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. But it did leak fuel. Now, once he realized it, he's like, okay, let me clean it up. So he mopped everything back up, pulled it back apart. He realized, I don't have to take the oil filter cooler assembly off, just pull the fuel rail. There it was, large as life, and we had to replace that O-ring, inspected all of them. Lubricate your O-rings. I found that Silglide works well, for putting them in smoothly. The key is, if they're fighting you, don't fight them. Don't just push harder. That's how they get sheared. Kind of do the old wiggle and push, and work it around until it kind of pops in smoothly on its own.
Right.
If you see a sliver of what looks like O-ring rubber, particularly in this case, the O-rings were blue. A lot of them are color-coded. And when he was cleaning up, he found that sliver of blue down in the valley. So it probably was him. And he says, he replaced it. We put it back together. He started it. We checked it. Dry as a bone. But You just have to watch that when you're messing with the fuel injectors, particularly those that instead of a machine bore, like in the aluminum head, but the fuel rail, which is a stamped steel and welded unit, it has sharp edges, and it will cut that O-ring if you push too hard and have it bulging out. So just keep in mind, take your time. If necessary, if the roll rings have swelled up from ethanol in the fuel, buy new ones. It's cheaper to buy new ones than to do the job twice.
Yes.
So hats off for Mark on his honesty, of showing that can happen to even the best of them. As he said, okay, I lost a half an hour of work replacing the O-rings, but he sent out the Jeep sealed tight and not leaking and in good shape.
Signed, sealed, and delivered.
Yeah.
And we talked about that. Actually, you kind of said it on our show about, vendor communication. Is that sometimes caca occurs. Yeah. Okay. And it's how well they address the situation and handle it.
Yeah.
You got to give them that chance. I actually, on the 4XE forums, the person bought a 4XE Wrangler. It stopped charging. Second week of ownership, parked it and wanted to lemon law it. They're 8 months into their lemon law and getting very frustrated and, quote, never going to buy another Jeep vehicle again. And we're all like, you didn't give them a chance to fix it? No. Okay, that's not how that works.
No, it's not.
So again, you got to at least give them a chance to make it right.
Yeah, nobody's manufacturing is 100%. Number one. Number two, definitely nobody's 101%.
Yeah.
Okay, of perfection. There's no retroactives on that. But, there is lemon law. What is it? 3 tries to make it right?
3 tries on a safety item.
Yes.
A noise rattle, you blew a speaker, the antenna fell off is not a safety item.
Gotcha.
Vehicle won't charge. Well, that might be a safety item. But again, each state and law is different. Do your research on that. But again, you got to at least give them a chance. I think that's more buyer's remorse.
Yeah.
We had someone purchase a Challenger and was out there revving the snot out of it. Came home, it was a Hellcat. Came back on a rollback with a rod sticking through the side of the block. Well, they had the red key in the key box, which means they were driving it with the race key in race mode on the street.
Of course.
Yeah. So guess what's not covered under warranty?
Racing.
Hey, I found the used engine.
Yeah.
$30,000.
Ooh.
Yep.
Ouch. So anyway, folks, we're not necessarily pro shop or pro owner. We're just reasonable people because we've both been on both sides of that little story. And you more recently than I.
Yeah.
The key is be reasonable. Listen, share. Even then, if they do turn out to be, villains, thieves, or otherwise thugs, you'll have the facts to back it up. You know, there's a reason every state that I'm aware of requires them to have the leftover parts available for your inspection.
Yep. There's a little box you check.
Yeah. It doesn't mean you have to take the parts home, but you should be able to look at them. And if you don't know what you're looking at, take a friend who does. This is a Jeep community. Jeepers that know Jeepers, and Jeepers help Jeepers. And
Yes.
you ought to be able to find someone that'll go with you who knows what a drive shaft looks like, knows what bad gears look like. And all the shops that I work with here will happily show them to you. I was watching Mark with the fuel pump and the idle air motor putting the bad parts after the fuel pump had dried out and wasn't smelling of raw gas back in the box the new part came in. Same thing with the idle air motor going in the box. Why? Because he wants to be able to show them to the owner of this is why this was changed.
You want to give them the ability to throw it away.
Right. And so I realize it's hard to do with old oil and antifreeze, and that's a good point. But, hardware like that, make sure you – oh, God. Scott just
No. We actually had a person bring their own parts once and brought antifreeze from the salvage yard.
Okie dokie, Smokey.
Yeah, I just remembered that. Anyways, we hopefully didn't sound like a bash a customer show or
It's
bash
not.
a shop show.
It's bash on reasonable people show if you want to be picky about it.
And if you want to go to the internet, and again, the internet is full of snark, hate,
Trolls.
anger, and trolls.
Yeah.
But it doesn't hurt. It also depends on how you want to phrase your question. If it's like, hey, quick question. Jeep is at a shop. You come out both barrels blazing. You don't know who your audience is.
Yep.
But if you come with hey, I got a Jeep at this shop. They're saying the drive shaft should be replaced. Is this a common issue? I can tell you right now, if it's a JK and it's lifted and it's got a front factory drive shaft, you can't rebuild those.
No.
You got to replace it.
And that may have been the case here. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the Rapaza joints, once overextended, they're not replaceable.
Can you replace just the Zeppa joint? Yeah, or Rapaza joint? Yes, you can.
Yes.
But it is just going to fail again. And
Yeah.
But anywho.
Well, and the funny thing is try and buy that joint.
Yeah.
Because nobody is replacing them because they have such a short service life when hyperextended or hyper angle. Even our friend at Shane, he's like, if I could find one, it's still cheaper to change it over to double garden.
And you got a stronger joint to begin with. But again, you go on there and look and ask questions. Yes, you have to scroll past the, you should know what you're doing in your Jeep owner anyways, or just empty every pocket.
Yeah.
You'll get, if you're lucky, Kevin's around there, If you're really lucky, I'll tag Kevin. But, the point, technical question, there's not a fart joke, Kevin. And I go ahead and hit send. No, but again, it's just an idea because, again, the internet can work both ways and wonders.
Yeah, it really can. You just now, in the early days, you got pretty much reasonable straighter opinions. Now there's a lot of fantasy out there. We'll just put it that way. And I do have to give a shout out to Mark again. Thanks so much, Mark, for inviting me to to do a joint video with you and help you out on some of your projects, and we'll keep doing that too. We will, folks. We are planning to get back to doing some of our own videos. Scott Dunn went out and got himself a new computator with the editing software on it so that we can do that, and we're going to step back lightly into that groove again.
Yes.
It's not going to be for a little while yet.
Yeah, we got some time. I'm going through some changes a little bit, some things on the radar for me that I'm going to try and do. But I will say this, though, as another little teaser, when it comes to the Jeep Beach adventure, you know, we are working on something. Nothing is in stone yet. It's preliminary. But we are working on a way to say thank you to the Patreons.
Yep.
So this gives you time to sign up if you'd like to help out. I'm just saying, shameless plug.
Yes, that was unexpected.
Okay. No, that wasn't shameless. That was please. But a big thank you to all of our current Patreons, including our corporate ones. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very, very much. So anyhow, I think we've spent more than enough time on this subject. And
Figures, now I'm waking up.
now he's waking up. So as usual, we say we're done talking. Time to go lock my hubs in. Yours can't.
Put the Jeep in 4 low and hit the trail. Remember to take nothing but pictures, memories, and your trash when you leave said trail.
Yeah, because we would like to have it around for our later generations to enjoy, not just from behind a sign with a little pretty picture and barbed wire.
And make sure you will legal and tread lightly to it, in case I forgot to say that.
You did. All right, folks. Check in for the next podcast of On the Trail with Kevin and Scott, and that'll be on the 15th of February 22.
Well, if you want to listen to January 15th show on February,
it's still available. Well, that's why it's wasted to breathe that, because they know that. But our listeners know that we go all the way back 5 years.
On that note, if you have some podcast players don't show older episodes, if you go to onthetrailpodcast.com, hit the archive link, you'll find all the other shows on the Spotify link that'll help you get to the old shows.
Yeah, all the way down to the absolute first one.
Boy.
If you want to laugh hysterically at a couple of stuttering people trying to read something very nice off a flip script,
your name here, you know. I like when everyone goes, how do you guys sound so good? You get lots of practice.
Lots of mistakes.
Yeah, this is what, let's do the math real quickly. 2016 to 22, that's 6 years?
Something like that.
Yeah, the math. So you just do this for 6 years, over 130 plus shows, you know, including bonus ones. I can roll over 150 when you get to the bonus ones. But anyways, I digress. It's time to get out there and go home. I need to go walk a puppy.
Yep.
Kind of the trail dog needs his walkies. So with that, we will bid you adieu, and please be cool to each other. But if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, onthetrailpodcast@gmail.com. I myself will probably say, hey, Kevin, we'll answer this technical question. And if you do send us a technical question that we use on the show, I'll get a sticker out to you. So with that.
And you can also reach us on Facebook.
Yes, the Facebook Messenger.
Or you can just go to the page and watch the links and the videos and make comments there for the public people so that everybody can join in.
Exactly. All right. Well, have a great time, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Proceeding has been provided for entertainment only. Proper service and repair procedures are vital to the safe, reliable operation of all motor vehicles, as well as personal safety of those performing those repairs. Standard safety procedures and precaution, including the use of safety goggles and proper tools and equipment, should be followed at all times to eliminate the possibility of personal injury or improper service which could damage the vehicle or compromise its safety.
What he said. Thanks a lot for listening, guys. You guys have a great day.
Bye.
This has been a Bent Axle Media production.